that we need to figure out. So we'll talk about a bunch of things. And actually, Vicky, can we actually do a quick poll on the four assignments that we had in terms of understanding which of
Sure. Do you have the slides? Or you want me to pull up the slides?
I'm just not sure because the ones that I have, I think they're a bit outdated given our discussion that we had today.
Um, Not really. Because there's still some relevant information. So let me just pull up the slides first, if that's okay.
Sure. But the
Um,
relevant information is that next week we're meeting on
yes.
Friday and we're going to do it at 11 a.m. So once again, it's a time change. It's not going to be at 10, it's going to be at 11. And the thing that we're going to discuss is tuples. But since tuples is not a
This
big
is your
topic,
music again.
oh God, come on, stop it with the music. I'm sure people are already sick and
Okay.
tired of my music. It's and you can't hear it anyway, so
Well, you
you know.
gotta talk louder over your music.
For you, maybe. So we're going to discuss tuples, and we're going to talk about sorting algorithms and how to sort data in Python. We'll have a number of lectures. We'll have a number of. Why is suddenly my. Why is Zoom suddenly asking me to confirm my speaking language? And for some reason, it thinks that I'm speaking Spanish. Hola! Yeah. So we'll have some lectures, we'll have some assignments, and these will be new in the sense that Vicky pulled up some more assignments, and we looked at them today and sort of decided which ones are worth doing and which ones go into the trash bin. And we really only have, by our calculation, maybe 3 or 4 sessions left given the topics remaining. So we'll do files today, tuple sorting next time. After that, it will probably be nested data structures. Although today we are going to deal with nested data structures as well. They are part of the tasks that we had for files. And then at the end, we would probably tackle classes and object-oriented programming. So that's something we'll leave for last. And maybe we will do, I know some of you asked for Pygame, so maybe we'll do a bit of Pygame because that's the module I know that works with graphics. It doesn't have to be games. It's called Pygame because you can do games, but it's not necessarily games. And yeah, I think that's it. So is there anything else I need to add, Vicky?
Okay. You wanted me to make a poll.
Yeah.
Okay. So a couple things to add. They're on the slides. So the Zoom link, everybody should have gotten the Zoom link. It is the same link every week. It doesn't change. And that Alex mentioned, time flies. When you're having fun. And so we only have like a couple more sessions left. And so he wanted me to put together a poll about possible other options you guys wanted to learn. I can't
No,
guarantee.
actually, I was talking about the poll for
Yes,
today's
yes, yes.
assignments.
I've got that too. Okay. And so I have a poll for 3 questions. One is the first question is a rank order questions about possible topics you guys might want to learn. I mean, just for full disclosure, I don't think Alex knows all of these topics, and so we can't guarantee we're going to be able to find somebody who can teach all of these topics. And then question two, just because, we only have at most like 2 hours today. There are 4 problems, and then most of these problems are very convolutedly worded. Maybe you guys could rank which ones you would want Alex to go over. And so recipes and big tweets both have solutions, but I also thought the solutions was not very obvious. Groceries does not have solutions. And then lastly, this is since Alex doesn't want to bet with me anymore, I thought, I would include like a weekly trivia. This is this week's weekly trivia. And then lastly, there's a friend of mine that wanted me to put in a plug for those of you that maybe are contemplating like getting into the software programming field. He wanted me to put in a plug for bioinformatics because most people don't know about bioinformatics. But there's like an unmet need, good pay, flex hours. You can do it anywhere in the world. And then most of bioinformatics deals with like biology with direct relevance to human health. And so there's just some of these free free resources if you want to get your feet wet as to what bioinformatics people do. These are like two online resources that are free that teaches you how to get started with command lines and then how to use Python. So I'll send out these links after today's lecture. So, okay. So I think 70% of the people have voted.
I have no idea how to read this, so
Well, okay, so there's like 6 people who haven't voted. Just gonna give you 2 more seconds and then I'm gonna end the poll. Okay. In terms of okay, can you see the results?
yeah.
Okay.
Well, at least I can, so
You can or cannot.
I can.
Okay, so basically for the first question, okay, I think it's all pretty close. Like object-oriented programming is number one, and then I think you were planning on talking about that, right?
Sure. Yeah, I'll
Yeah.
talk about that.
And then everything else like Matplotlib library, Pygame, NumPy, Pandas, they're all more or less the same. And so
Well, no, I would say that Pygame is dead last.
it is.
Well, given the number of people who selected this as most likely, that seems to be the case. So object-oriented programming is in first place, and then you have like Matplotlib and Pandas and NumPy more or less in second place, and Pygame is somewhere in the back. So we'll do object-oriented programming anyway. For Matplotlib or NumPy or Pandas, I'm unfortunately not the guy to talk about them because I don't have much experience with them.
How about visualization? Data visualization.
I'm not even sure what that is.
Uh,
You mean visualization? But what do you mean? What does your question
like
mean?
data analysis, like visualize big data.
Oh, okay. I do not have experience with that, so I would not be able to teach that. Maybe if someone else, if because I mean Vicky was able to find TJ for last
That was
time,
not
and
very easy.
someone else. I'm not saying it's easy, but since you're asking, then probably you have something in mind. And like Vicky said, that it's not a given that we would find someone.
Right.
But
And so I'll take a screenshot of this. And so I think, Alex can do Pygames and then he can do object-oriented programming. I think for visualization, Matplot library and NumPy and Pandas are used for visualization. I can try to ask around again, but no guarantee. And then in terms of which assignments we would like to go over today, it seems like
well,
Big Tweet.
big tweets has the most
Yeah, it
likely
seems like
votes.
Big Tweet is one. And
And
then
the
recipes
rest
and
are
groceries is like close second, but there's more second
groceries is
place for
second. Yeah.
grocery, and so maybe big tweets and groceries.
Okay.
Okay, and then in terms of, wow, I did not think people would get this, but yes. In fact, all 5 of these people attended Stanford at one point or another, but only one of them actually graduated, and that's Fred Savage. All of the other 4 people dropped out before they actually got their degree. So that's that.
Okay. So the people have spoken. The thing that we're going to discuss initially is the big tweets. Let me share my screen now. Okay, can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. So for big tweets, we had a starter file. So we had some starter code. For whatever reason, among the files that I downloaded, there was a small tweets file, but the big tweets file, for whatever reason, was simply empty. I thought it was supposed to have like more tweets, but it did not have anything. So it shouldn't be a problem. I mean, we should be able to figure this out using the small one. Although it would have been more interesting to see it in action with a larger file. So let me pull up the description itself. And of course I closed it. I'm such a klutz. Okay, here we go. So with big tweet data, the story is the following. Can I just check with you? Can you type a plus or a minus in the chat to give me an idea of whether you managed to finish this one or not? Give me a plus if you finished it, if you did it, a minus if not, for whatever reason. Okay, minuses. Tried but didn't finish. Okay. Okay, I think that's enough minuses to go through it in detail. Okay. So what this program is supposed to do is read through a number of tweets which are stored in a file, and then store this data in such a way that you could check which hashtags various users used in their tweets and how many times they use this or that hashtag. So this is an example of data analysis. And the data set that we're going to work with is this file. So this one is a small file. It has only like 11 lines in it, but it gives us enough, to actually figure out how this would work. The only thing with this specific file that worries me a bit is that I think it has some new lines which are not supposed to be there, because my feeling is that this is supposed to be one twit. I think this is supposed to be one twit, and I think this is supposed to be one twit, because otherwise you have this is not a tweet. This is just a link which is written here as a separate line, and we could have worked like over this, but I don't think that the initial assignment was meant to do this, judging by the functions which are in this file. So I will return them to what I perceive as the original format, with these links at the end of the relevant tweets. So in reality, we have only 8 tweets here. And the idea is that each tweet always starts with the @. It's always a single line of text. And you have the username, which is prefixed by the @symbol. Then you always have a colon. And then you have the text of the tweet itself, which can contain a number of hashtags. So a hashtag is basically anything that, like letters that follow the hashtag symbol. And characters in this file can be, this is important, then they can be characters from any language. So it does not necessarily have to be English. It could be, I don't know, French, German, Russian, Chinese, whatever you have. And also you could have emojis in there, which are also a separate bunch of symbols. So yeah, it says here that we're provided with, small tweets, big tweets, and huge tweets. Unfortunately, in the file that we have only small tweets. Big tweets is empty, huge tweets is even non-existent. So what we need to do is in this program to create a dictionary. We will have our usernames and hashtags stored in a dictionary, which itself will contain dictionaries as its values. So for instance, here we have an example where we have Barack Obama as the key, and then the value for that key is another dictionary. So this is a nested dictionary. You have one dictionary inside another dictionary. And this nested dictionary has hashtags as keys, and the values are the number of times this or that hashtag has been used by this user. So for instance, here we see that SCOTUS has been used 4 times and Obamacare has been used 3 times. How do you actually, Vicky, how do you actually pronounce this? Do you actually call it like SCOTUS? I know it means like the Supreme Court of the United States. Do you say SCOTUS, and do you say POTUS before President of the United States? Because I've never actually pronounced this before. Okay, so this is the data structure which we will be using. It's going to be a dictionary of dictionaries. And here we need to write down a number of functions. So we have add tweet, which we need to do ourselves. We have parse tweet, which we also need to do ourselves. We have flat counts, which is an extension problem. We'll do that one as well. And then we have a number of provided functions. So we have, for instance, a function which is called parse tags that has already been written. And we know that if we pass a tweet into this function, it will return a list of hashtags which are present in that tweet. So for instance, here we have tweet, we have fire. So there we go. Here we have tag 1, tag 2, so it should return, etc., etc. If we don't have a single hashtag, we get an empty list. Like here's an empty list. This is not a tag. So if you have the hashtag, but you don't have anything after it, this is also not a tag. But if you have 2 of them sort of together, you don't need a space here. So even if there is no space here, this function recognizes them as 2 separate tags. We will not have to write this function, it's already written. So I'm just explaining right now what it does. And the second one is called parse user, and it's very similar. So this one is parse tags, and it returns a list of tags from a tweet. And parse user returns the name of the user if it's present in the line. So you see here we have user Jonathan, here we have user this is a test, and here we don't have a user, so it returns an empty string. And then we have print counts. So this is simply a function which prints how many tweets of each type, how many hashtags of each type were present in the dictionary for this or that user. And once again, this has already been done for us. We just need to use it. And then this entire collection of functions is sort of function. So when we launch this program, we actually launch the main function. And the main function has a lot of things which I presume you'd have questions about. So just a reminder, if at any point in time you have a question about anything I'm explaining, feel free to speak up via voice. I'm trying to follow the chat so that we figure out an answer before
Hi,
I go.
Alex. The SIS module was brand new to me, and
Yeah.
I did learn some about it, through what others wrote and what I investigated, but it's still very new, and some time on that would be helpful for me.
Sorry, I missed the beginning. You said which module?
The whole SIS module, and the way
Okay.
it works, for me, that would be useful if you could really review all of that.
The sys module, because I remember you writing about it in the forum. The thing is that in order to do this assignment, we do not really need to understand the sys module because it's been pre-written for us, but I would go over at least this syntax so that everyone understands what it actually does. In short, the sys module, sys is obviously shorthand for system. The sys module allows Python programs to interact with the operating system and do some things which the operating system can do. And in our specific case, what it allows us to do here is to actually launch this program from the command line, so either from a terminal or from a Windows PowerShell, with a number of parameters. So we would launch the program writing like Python, what's it called? Python tweets.py, and then you'd be able to add some of these parameters. So you would either list a file name from which you're trying to read, so in our case, small tweets, txt. You could use the user's option to just print out user names, or you could print out something for one specific user, one particular user by naming him, or print out flat tag counts. We'll get to that a bit later. I don't think this one is working because they included this one, but I don't see its implementation here. So I even have no idea why it's here. We will get to this, but we will get to this a bit later when we are actually able to launch the program after having written the functions. Because right now it would not work because we don't have two workable functions at the beginning. But I will get back to talking about sys and this specific attribute so that you understand what it means. So let's get back to the three functions that we need to write.
Alex, can I interrupt for a second?
Sure.
Can you scroll down for a second? One of the functions that was pre-written, hold on, parse, not parse users, but parse tags.
Yeah.
Is it possible for you to do a traceback of this function just to sort of explain what this function is actually doing? Because I understood the first condition of the while true loop, but I think the second true condition is actually a little bit tricky.
Okay.
Because I think it's like parsing where you see that that particular like sign, okay, right, for the hashtag. And I'm not, well, particularly the very last condition, I'm not sure I really understood that.
You mean this one?
Yes.
Okay, let's sure. I mean, let's go through it. Then I would probably do it right now, since this is a helper function which we'll need to use, and it's a good thing to understand how it works. So with parse tags, just a quick reminder, this function receives a stringified tweet, so a string, which is a tweet. Just give me a second. A string, the tweet, and we need to return a list of hashtags which are present in that tweet. So
I guess it would be helpful if you clarify, right? Like the input
I'm
of
going to go through
this
it right
function is a string, right? And then what comes out of it, is it a dictionary?
Okay.
No, it's a list.
To tell him off. I'm
It's
cancelling
a
some parties
list.
in my home.
It's a list of strings which are the hashtags that we are looking for.
Okay.
So you can see it here, for instance, in the doc tests. It gives you the result of running the function. It's a list of one, well, it could be zero, a list of 0 or more hashtags which are present in the tweet. So we can actually look at this with a specific example. So for instance, let's take this function call where we have parse tags, and then this is the tweet that we need to work with. What we do is first we create an empty list. So this is going to be the list that holds all the hashtags. So I'm going to write this, create a list of hashtags. And initially it's empty, So then we will have a variable called search, which my guess is, well, let us get to that a bit later. I think this one is going to look through the indices. Or
I thought search is like the number of hashtag tweets there are.
I'm just trying to remember because I see that find has search as the second parameter here, and I'm trying to remember what it actually does. I do not remember this one. Let me quickly look it up. Find Python, find.
Right. So I think the search is an integer initialized to 0 to keep track of the current position in the tweet while searching for hashtags.
Okay, value start and start. Where to start the search? If I'll from 5 to 10. So what we'll do, just a sec. It will give us 8. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, so it defines when we are searching for the symbol, it defines the index from which we start the search. So initially the idea is that we start the search from the 0th index, and this will change as the program runs, as I understand. So this variable to keep track of starting index during search. And then we have I don't like loops which go while true, but it works. So we have a endless loop, infinite loop. And inside this infinite loop, what we're doing, we first look for the hash mark inside our tweet, starting from this index. So since at the moment, our index is 0, we start from the beginning of the tweet. So we go across this string and we go like this is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then at index 5, we find the first hashtag. So at this moment, hash is 5 because we found the first hashtag at index 5, and we save this into this variable. Then we have a very interesting condition. The condition says if hash equals -1. What does this mean? The find function returns -1 if it did not manage to find any hashtags in the string. So for instance, if we take this string, which says this tweet is on fire and it doesn't have a single hashtag, the find method would return -1. -1 means I did not find anything. So this would mean if there are no hashtags, and here break simply ends the infinite loop. So this means that there is nothing more to be found. So this is the place where we exit the loop as soon as there are no more hashtags. Otherwise, we create a variable which is called end, and it's going to be the next index after the one we found. So here, for instance, if our hash is 5, end is going to be 6. The reason for this is that we're going to use the end variable to go index by index to find the end of the current hashtag. So for instance, here we start with this hashtag and we need to take these 5 TWEET, which are the body of the hashtag. But as soon as we reach a space, that would mean that the hashtag is over. And this is what we need to add to our list of hashtags. So let's see how this would work. We have a condition here, and the condition is the following. The first thing that we're checking is that this number end, the index that we have here, is actually inside the string. So this index does not go outside the string, because if it does go outside the string, it means that we reached the end of the line and there is nothing more to check. So we need this to be like a stoppage sign. The second one is more important. We are checking whether the symbol which is at this index is alphanumerical. So alphanumerical means it's either a letter or a digit. So the way it works, we start with this index. It's a T. So this condition would be true because index 6 is obviously less than the entire length of this string, and it is alphanumerical. So if this is the case, end is increased by 1. So n is now 7, and we're checking the next one. The next one is W. It's also a letter. Okay, cool. The next one is 8. It's the E. Then we have 9. It's still the E. Then we have 10, which is the T. And then we finally go to 11. And suddenly 11 does not work in this condition anymore because 11 is a space, and the space is not alphanumerical. It's not a number. It's not a letter. So here is the place where this loop ends, and end is at 11. And now we are actually creating our hashtag. So the hashtag is whatever is in our tweet, starting at index 5 and ending but not including index 11. So basically from 5 to 10. So we know that this will be what is saved, right? So hashtag here becomes tweet. Like hashtag is tweet. It's a string. It's a substring because we're using slicing here. So we slice it into two parts. And now we check whether the length of this hashtag, though, one second, if this is 5, it actually, sorry, it includes the hashtag. So this is what it looks like. This is like 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So this is what would be saved, the entire hashtag in this variable. And now, Vicky, you said that you don't understand this condition. This condition checks that there is actually something besides the hashtag. So it says if the length of this is more than 1, then it is a valid hashtag. Because if it's just a hashtag and that's it, it's not a valid hashtag. So in case this is true, it will append this hashtag to our list of hashtags. So at this moment, our list of hashtags suddenly becomes, instead of an empty list, it becomes, and we have our first hashtag, right? So now, after this is done, we move our search variable to the end. So now our search is not 0, now our search is 11. And we come back to the beginning of the loop, and we start finding the next hashtags starting from index 11. So now we're looking index 11, not a hashtag 12, 13, 14, 15. And we come to index 15, if I'm correct in my count. So now hash is 15. We found the next hash. And then we do the same thing. So hash is not -1, so we still have a job to do. And is hash +1, so now it becomes 16. So 15 plus 1 is 16. And once again, we check the following letters. So F is good, we go to 17. I is good, we go to 18. R is good, we go to 19. E is good, we go to 20. And now we hit this condition. So this condition says that there is no index 20 in this tweet, which means we reached the end of the tweet and we do not need to continue doing this. We are at 20. And after that, we read the second hashtag. The second hashtag in our case will be hashtag fire. It's definitely more than one symbol. We append it to our hashtags list. So now we have a second one here, which is called fire. And search becomes end. So search now becomes 20. And the next thing when we try to do here to search for another hashtag starting at index 20, this will return -1 because there are no more hashtags at index 20 or beyond, because there is even no index 20. So in this place we break, this entire loop ends. So we're out of this loop. And the last thing that the function does is actually return this list of hashtags that we managed to find inside this tweet. So this is the way it works. Let me know, guys and girls, if you have if you have any questions right now. Abhinav, very good question. Can't we use regex to find hashtags? Sure, but since we have not studied regex, and it's so that you know, regex is like regular expressions. It's something which is used to find, substrings and strings using special syntax, but it's quite complex. So since we have not studied this, I'm not going to use regex to do this. We'll just stick with this function. So Vicky, are you clear on what's going on here?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just gonna ask you this again, because hopefully I'm not the only one who was confused about this. If you do not find any hashtag, okay, why is hash equal to -1?
Yeah, this is something that we discussed with Vicky.
Right.
The reason why the find method returns -1 when there are no hashtags is because the person who created this method decided on the convention that if his method doesn't find anything, it would return -1. We cannot return any positive value because any positive value would be an index. A 0 or a positive value means that it found the hashtag at a certain index, like index 0, index 2, index 5, index 20, whatever. So there were supposedly various options he could have used to signify that the method did not find anything. the author of this method decided to use -1, probably for reasons of continuity, that older programming languages also used -1 to signify that there was nothing to be found. The question that we discussed with Vicky, could it have been something different? Could it have been like -10, -100, -2? Theoretically, the answer is yes. He could have used any number. It's just a conventionally picked number, like let it be -1. But since we are not the authors of that method, we have to use what the author decided on.
So, can I ask another question at the risk of annoying you? Because, okay, when we talk about a list, right, we could talk about it going forward, in which it's like a positive number, but then we can also talk about it going backwards, which would be a negative number, okay?
Right.
And so I don't understand why, if you were to set the if hash is equal to -1, why that would not interfere with the end of your tweet. Because in theory, you could be counting backwards as well.
Sure, but find does not count backwards.
Okay.
It only counts forwards.
Okay.
And this is a very good question, because if some know how the find function works, he could actually be mistaken if he thinks that -1 actually signifies that the hashtag was found in the last symbol of the tweet. This is why it's very important to understand how the function works and what the syntax of the function is and what the return values signify, and use this condition. Because otherwise you could get in trouble if you don't know how the function works. So it's important to understand the inner workings of the function. Well, not the inner workings. You don't care about the inner workings. You do care about the return value, what the return value signifies. So yeah, it's a good question. Are we good? Okay, so now let's go back to the functions that we're actually supposed to write. So the first one is called add tweet. It takes a dictionary that we already have. So it could be an empty dictionary, or it could already be a dictionary with data. And it gives you a specific tweet. And the idea is that you have to parse this tweet, find out who the author is, find out what hashtags this tweet has, and then add this data to our dictionary, which is keeping all of this data together. In order to parse the user and the tags, like we already seen, we already have helper functions provided to us by Stanford. So we have parse tags, we have parse user. We're going to use these for the parsing. After that, we need to check whether this specific user already, well, first of all, we need to check whether there is a user in the tweet, because for whatever reason, we could get something which masquerades as a tweet, but it's not, because it doesn't have a user. So if there is no user in the tweet, we do not make any changes to the dictionary. We just ignore the entire tweet. However, if there is a user, then we need to check several things. We need to check if this user already exists in the dictionary or not. And if he or she does not exist, we need to add that user to the dictionary. If the user already exists, we need to check whether those specific hashtags are already saved in the data. If they are not, we have to add those hashtags. If the hashtags do exist, we need to increase their relative numbers by 1. And in the end, we need to return the updated dictionary. So this is basically, if we look at the examples here, let's take a look at the examples. So the first example says you have an empty dictionary, so you don't have any users, you don't have any tweets yet. This is the first one. And in this tweet, we see that Alice is the user. So we have Alice as the key here. And then we have two tweets, apple and banana. And what we have as the value of this dictionary is another dictionary, which contains two key value pairs. The first key value pair is apple 1, because we encountered it once. And the second one, banana. It's also 1 because we encountered it once. So this is the end result that we're supposed to get. Another case, we already have this dictionary. So this is the dictionary at the start of the function. And we have another tweet from Alice, which just says banana. So the result here would be adding another banana tweet to the one that we already have. So now instead of 1, it's supposed to be 2. The final one, we have Alice with apple 1, banana 2. We have a tweet with a different user, Bob, who says apple. So now we have to add Bob as a new key to our dictionary. So here is the second key is Bob. We have Alice here and we have Bob. And Bob now has his own dictionary, which just has one key value pair, apple 1, because that's the only one we've seen so far. So let me know if this is clear, if you're clear on what we're supposed to do. If you have any questions, please let me know. Let me check what you're doing in the chat. Okay, you're helping out Tatiana with the links. Okay. So any questions? If there are questions, this is the best time to ask them. If not, let's go into the implementation. So once again, what we get is user tags is a dictionary, existing dictionary, and we have a tweet that we need to parse. The first thing I'm going to do, I'm actually going to break this tweet up into the user and the tags. And this is quite simple. I will do user equals, and then I will take our parse user function and pass the tweet in as a parameter. And what this function does, let me remind you, this function takes in a tweet, finds the user in that tweet and returns that user. So this way I will get the name of the user from the
Alex,
tweet.
sorry to interrupt, okay?
Sure.
At least for me, this might be helpful. Whenever you introduce a sub function, okay, can you just tell us, looking at those two parameters, what are those parameters that are being passed into the function, so that at least I can orient myself as to, you know, what these functions are taking in? And then if,
Which function are you talking about right now?
well, you're talking about add tweet, right?
Yeah.
Okay, and so add tweet takes two parameters, user
Yes.
tags and tweet. Okay,
Yes.
and so can you just tell us what user tags are and what tweet are? I think they're both
I
strings.
did. I can repeat it, no problem. So
Okay, I might have
this
missed
is
it.
the first thing that I talked through.
Okay,
So user tags, once again, user tags is the current dictionary that already exists that has all the users and their hashtags that have already been saved into that dictionary. So here, when we went through the examples, we actually went through here, it's empty, so we don't have any data. Here, it already has one user, Alice, with 2 hashtags. Here, it also has the user Alice with 2 hashtags. So this is what's saved in the user tags dictionary. This is basically our data structure, which holds all of the information that we're looking for.
okay, and so user tag is a dictionary.
Yes.
Okay, that's all you
It's
need.
a dictionary of dictionaries. So it's the data structure that we're using to store data in this in this program.
Okay, and then tweets are strings.
Tweets are strings of a single, it's a string of a single tweet.
Okay, that's all I needed to know. Okay.
Okay, excellent. So once again, let me quickly look through the chat. Small accelerator, okay. So using the parse user function, I'm going to get the username, and using the parse tags function that we discussed previously, I'm also going to pass tweet as an argument into that function. I'm going to get a list of tags. So this one, user is the user's name, and tags is a list of the hashtags in the tweet. Is the user's name from the tweet. So it's important to understand that if there is no user in the tweet, so for instance, there is no Alice like this, there is no one starting with the @, the user will be an empty string. So I will write this here. This will be an empty string if there's no user. And if there are no tags, this is also important. This will be an empty. This will be an empty list if there are no tags. Okay, so we have our user, we have our list of tags. So the next thing we should do, it says here, if no user exists in the tweet, then we simply return our dictionary unchanged. So we do not make any changes to the user tags. We just return it unchanged. However, if we do have a user, and we can check this with a simple condition, which will say if user, we will make some changes to the dictionary. And in any case, after those changes are done, we will return the user tags dictionary. So the idea is that if this condition is false, so this means if there is a username, so user is not an empty string, we will do something here. We will add that user's tags to the dictionary. Otherwise, we will not, and we'll just return the unused dictionary. So what do we do when there is a user? We have two possible situations. The first possible situation is that this user already exists in our dictionary. So for instance, if it's Alice and we're trying to add another Alice, we know that this user is already in there. The second situation, if this is a new user, for instance, we have Alice and we're trying to add Bob. So here we will also need to do another condition. The first one is going to be if user in user tags. So if we have this user as a key, if this user is already in the dictionary, in this case, what we're going to do is we're going to go, well, let's do it the other way around. I think it's easier to do it the other way around. We'll say if user not in user tags. So if this user is still not in the dictionary, what we're going to do, we are going to add that key with an empty dictionary. So we're going to say user tags user equals an empty dictionary. So what I'm doing right now, I am actually adding that user. And since that user does not have any tags at the moment, the internal dictionary, this one, is just going to be empty. There is nothing there yet. So this makes sure that if it's a new user, it's going to be in the dictionary. If it's an older user, we do not need to create anything because the user already exists. And the next thing we need to do, we need to work through the tags. So we're going to go like for tag in tags. So we're going to go through, Yeah.
Can I ask you for the previous condition, if user not in the user tag, you're simply adding a key value pair into that dictionary, right?
Yes.
Okay, um, and the empty dictionary is actually your value, right?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, and then because you are adding a value, it automatically adds the key as well.
Yes.
Okay.
So for instance, if you
Yeah,
look
yeah,
at this
I get
example
it.
here, at this point, you would have this. You would have an empty Bob user. There we go. So now that we have our user, or we already had our user, we're gonna go through all the tags that we got from our parse text function. And for each of those tags, we're gonna check whether the user already has this tag or not. So I'm gonna go if tag in, and then I'm gonna do user tags user. So if this tag is already a key for this inner dictionary of the user, so for instance, with Bob, obviously with Bob, we do not have Apple in there because Bob's dictionary is an empty dictionary. There is no Apple. But for instance, in an earlier example where we had Alice with a banana, we're seeing that there is already a banana in there. While in this case, when we had Alice an empty dictionary, there was no banana in there. So we're checking if we already have this key in the inner dictionary. And if we do, what we need to do is just add. So we take our dictionary, we take the user key, and for that user, we need to take the second key, which in our case is the tag. So what this means, just give me a second. It has to become, we need to add 1 to it. So the idea is that, let's take a look at this one. Once again, we're trying to add a banana to Alice. We know that there is a banana in there because our tag banana is already among these keys. We found it among the keys. And now we're saying for user tags, the key is user, in our case, Alice. So we're going to this dictionary. And in this dictionary, we are using tag as the second key. And in our case, it's banana. So we're going here. And we are adding 1 to this so that we get 2 as a result. Here we have 2 as a result. So this is, in terms of syntax, this is similar to two-dimensional lists. Remember, in two-dimensional lists, you first have the y coordinate and then you have the x coordinate or whatever. Here it's also the same. You first have the coordinate of the outer dictionary, sort of the key of the outer dictionary, and then you have the key of the inner dictionary. And we add 1 to it. Otherwise, we just store 1 in there because we know that this this key does not exist, and we need to add this key. So in our case with Bob, for instance, Bob doesn't have any Apple. Remember, he had an empty dictionary. So now we actually add Apple as the key, and the value for that key is 1 because this is the first time we encountered this this tag, and it becomes 1. And I believe this is it. So we do this for every tag that we have in our list. And after that, the for loop is done. And we return the updated dictionary. In terms of normal programming, we don't even need to return it because dictionary is a mutable data type. And mutable data types are changed inside the program. However, since we're using doc tests here, for the doc test to work, your function actually has to return something that the doc test compares it to. So this is the reason why we need to return user tags here. In a regular program without testing, this would not have been necessary. So this is my take on the add tweet function. or method to be more precise. Any questions at this point that I need to answer before we move forward? I guess not, but if you do come up with some questions, don't be afraid to shout out, ask me in the like via voice or via chat. Okay, so we're done with add tweet.
Can I ask you?
Sure, but I can't, it's very very low volume. Could you try again?
Hello.
Yeah, Abhinav, I can hear you, but just barely.
So you said in regular programming, we do not need to return a dictionary.
Yes.
So why don't we need to return it, or like, what are the cases in which we do not need to return it?
The reason why we need to return it, well, we don't need to return it. We would want to return it if we want to use the doc tests. Because the way doc tests work is they actually compare the return value of the function with whatever you write here. So if we do not want to test our function using doc tests, so if we are certain that it's correct, we can, comment this out and the function will still work. But since we'll probably want to run the doc tests sooner or later, we need to return it, because otherwise the doc test will say your function is supposed to return this, but it's not returning anything, so you have a test failure. Does that answer your question?
No, why don't we need to return it in regular programming?
One more time.
Why don't we need to return it in regular programming?
Oh, so your question is the opposite. Why would it work even if we do not return it? Is that your question?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. The reason for that is that user tags is a dictionary, and a dictionary is a mutable data type. What that means is that if you change something for that dictionary inside a function, that change will persist outside the function. So you do not have to return the result because it will be changed outside the function. That's the way mutable data types work. So this works with the lists, this works with dictionaries, this works with sets. So these are the most commonly used mutable data types. This will not work with strings. This will not work with any other immutable types like integers, floats, booleans, tuples, because they are immutable and you cannot change them in place. But you can change dictionaries this way, and the changes persist outside the function. Does that make it clear? If you're answering, I can't hear you. Your mic is off.
Sorry. Yeah, it does. So,
Okay, cool. So the change will persist each return.
Other help functions. So basically all the other help functions that need to be returned for the result, just for some specific types that is immutable or mutable, right?
Yes. So for mutable data types, you do not have to return the result if you're changing it inside the function. For an immutable data type, you do have to return the result and save it to the variable, because otherwise the result of your function will be lost. It will not be saved anywhere, and you will get stuck with the previous value, which is not changed in any way inside the function. Okay? Okay, so Nate, I see your question. Could you review again how to run the doc test for a single function? Yes. Now, for some reason, I don't know why, but for this specific code, I can actually, remember you told me about using the right button, mouse button, and launching it. And for some reason, it works for this specific code. I have no idea why, but I do have here run doc test add tweet. So I can actually run it. And as you will see, it will do the test and it will not produce any mistakes. So it means that this one works. Let's check the other one. Works as well. Let's check the third one. Works as well. So no failures here. all three of these doc tests pass with flying colors. The other way we could have done it is, if I remember correctly, is what import doc test, and then I think you could do doc test mod name equals the name of the function. In our case, it's add tweet. And maybe if we run this one, yeah. So as you can see, I ran the test, and it also did not produce any errors. But let's try, you know, screwing up our code so we do have an error, and so we'll add 2 instead of adding 1 and see whether that works. And it actually has here tests failed 1. Here it says that it has to be 2, but it's actually 3. That's obviously because I added 2 instead of 1. If I go back to 1 and launch it again, it finishes without any errors. So does that answer your question, Nate? Is that enough of a reminder, or do you still have some more questions?
That is a good reminder. I do have one more question, Alex, though, which is, is there a way to supplement the way you write the call to check a function, you know, when you actually do it out, and have it not just return nothing, but just like go through, this is what was expected, this is what we got. I believe, I know in a different IDE, in VS Code, you know, I found a way to do that, which was kind of cool. It wasn't just blank. It actually said, you know, here's what was expected, here's what we got, you know, and it all worked, but it was better than seeing nothing. Is there a way to do that in PyCharm?
You can add verbose, true.
So if you...
That's right, verbose was the way to do it in VS Code, yeah. Verbose equals true.
Let's try.
But you can also see it when you make it incorrect, so.
Okay, did not work right now. It's still not showing anything. Any other thoughts on?
Well, I guess in PyCharm, I don't know, can you click maybe on the test passed or something? Because it definitely shows when you screw it up, right?
Yeah, sure. It shows even without verbose. I mean, you can remove verbose, and if you screw it up like here, you will get it in any case. So I can run it like this, and I will get a bunch of errors, and I can just run it, and I will still get a bunch of errors.
If you run it and you don't get errors, are you able to click on the tests passed? Because it shows at the top like 3.
One sec. But yeah, it doesn't actually do anything. Maybe here, no. I mean, it just says, you know, tests passed, so why would I bother you with details? And maybe there is a way.
It may just be that the way to do this is different in VS Code and PyCharm, and that may be the issue, because it gets into the weeds of the syntax and exactly how you do it. So
I think that maybe it's actually something which is done in VS Code, because by default, I mean, if you throw out PyCharm, if you throw out VS Code and you just do it command line, by default, doctest does not show you any information if
that's
your
true in
test
VS
pass.
Code too. You have to add the verbose thing and a few other things, but I don't think it's the same. We probably shouldn't get stuck on this, but I was just curious within PyCharm if you happen to know how to do that, because it's sort of feels better to know.
Sure. Yeah, I can understand you
Rather than
perfectly.
just blank.
And let me look into it. I don't know, but let me later look into it. If I
Okay,
find it,
thanks.
yeah, I'll let you know. Okay?
But then again, it's quite unnecessary because you already know what the tests are and what the result should be because you have it in your
Sure, but I can
Right.
understand Nate's feeling then, you know, when you get the written confirmation that like, yeah, dude, your tests are good, and you sort of like, ooh, I'm good. So it's just positive reinforcement. Okay, so I think we're done with this function. Like once again, if any questions pop up into your mind, let me know, but let's go to the next one. So the next function is actually about files. We finally got, an hour and 11 minutes into our meeting, we finally got to reading files. And so the idea here is that we have a file of tweets. We get the file name as a parameter, and we need to read those lines and build and return a user tags dictionary with all the tweet data. And we're obviously going to use the previous function to do this because this is the function that adds tweets. So here's what we're going to do. The first thing that we need to do is actually open the file for reading. So there are multiple ways to do this, but I'm going to show you the way that you've probably seen in the lectures or in the slides. The one that I prefer. And the one that I prefer uses the with keyword, which is called a file manager or a context manager. It's a very useful thing because it allows you to open the file and forget about actually needing to close it, because the with keyword will close the file as soon as you're done working with it. So it's a very useful shortcut, and you do not need to manually close the file you opened. So I'm going to use with. Then there is the open function. The open function opens a file. This is quite logical. The first thing you need to pass into this function is the file name. And in our case, because I remember that some of you remember, Nate, you posting your code and you actually wrote here like small tweets, for instance, like this. But the idea is that you are actually given a file name that you have to use. It does not have to be small tweets. It could be any file name, and your function has to be universal. So we will write file name. This is the parameter that we're getting, the name of the file. Next, we are opening this file like in read mode. So we are reading from the file, we're not writing into the file. And this is the default mode for files. When you open files, by default, you open them for reading. But if you do want to be explicit, you can add another parameter, which is the small letter R in quotes. This means like open for reading. There are other modes that we could use. For instance, if you want to do writing, you would do W, and this allows you to write into a file instead of reading from a file. You could use A, which stands for append, and append adds to the end of the file, as opposed to W write, which overwrites the entire file. It discards the contents of the file and writes new stuff into the file. So, but in our case, it's R, but you can get rid of the R because by default, it is R by default, but I'll keep it just as a reminder. And then the third thing, which is useful here, remember we were told in the assignment itself that there is a high chance that we'd get tweets in different languages. We can have characters from any languages or emojis, etc., etc. And in order not to screw this up, we need to explicitly state what encoding we want to use, because by default, Python uses, I don't remember which one, but the basic ASCII encoding, which only recognizes English, like Latin letters. It does not recognize letters from other alphabets, be it's like Cyrillic alphabet or, I don't know, Korean alphabet or what have you. If I'm not mistaken, it doesn't even recognize accented letters like the ones you have in French or German or Italian or Spanish. So in order to do this, we're going to use a key argument, which is called encoding, and set it to UTF-8. UTF-8 is the name of the Unicode encoding. So right now, most stuff everywhere is done in Unicode, because Unicode allows you to store to store strings in a variety of languages with a variety of characters, including emojis, etc., etc. So this is the one you need to remember. And I think I read somewhere that soon Python will probably change this by default. I don't know why they haven't done it yet. I mean, this is so obvious these days, like when you do international things, that you need this encoding. But I think they're going to do it around Python 3.15 or maybe 3.16. I don't remember exactly, but they have it in their plans. But before we get to that, we need to do encoding. And then I will write as file. So what this line does is actually look at this file name, open it for reading using this encoding, and save what's called a file descriptor into this variable called file. I can call this variable whatever I want. Many people use just f, but for me, file is more specific. Like f, you'd say what the f, but file, you sort of say, okay, file, I understand what file is. And what a file descriptor is actually an integer which allows you to access a very specific file in the operating system. So by using this open method, this open function, you actually sort of ask the operating system that your computer is working on to give you access to a certain file, and that certain file is given by the operating system, and this number is saved in this variable. And through this variable, through this file descriptor, you are able to access the file in the operating system. So now we have an open file. What do we want to do with this file? Well,
Alex?
Yeah.
Can I ask a quick question? Do you need that encoding is equal to UTF-8? Because I thought I read somewhere that Python does that by default anyways. And so do you really need
It doesn't. It's in 3.15 that's going to be the default.
Okay, 3.
Alex already said it as well, but when I was looking at it, yeah, it doesn't do it. That's why we need it.
Trust me, as a person who works a lot with Russian texts, it does not do it. Russian texts get mangled into crap without this. So, but soon it's going to be done. Though I'm not sure how long it will take.
Doesn't sound like it's going to be. We're in what,
Yeah, it's going to be like a couple of years. Probably. Yeah, it's going to be 13 in October, and then I think it's 2 more years after that. So yeah, it's not that soon. That's true. Richard, yes, with does close the file after opening and reading. Yes, as soon. So it's important that we have the colon here and we use the indent. As soon as we're done with the indent, this file will automatically close. So this is important, the important use of with. So now, inside this file, we're given this idea that each line contains a single tweet, and we need to read that tweet in and add it to our dictionary. And initially, when we start this function, we do not have a dictionary, so we need to create an empty one. There we go, we have an empty dictionary. Now, we're going to go through the file line by line. There are various ways of doing it, but to me, the easiest way to do this is to go for line in file. And once again, line is an arbitrary name. I can call this variable whatever I want. I could call it for X in file. But once again, in order to be explicit what I mean, I write for line in file. And Python goes through a file line by line. So it takes one line, gives it to you in the first iteration, then it takes the second line, gives it to you in the second iteration, and it does this until it reaches the end of the file. So this works for us. The first thing that I like to do when I read a line from a file is to actually clean up any white space that this line has, because in a file each line at the end has the new line symbol, and it's an actual symbol which will screw up your, for instance, tweets. It could actually be added to the end of the tweet. There's actually someone drawing. I'm not sure what this line is supposed to mean. One sec. Leah, you're saying every time I go through a file, I can assume the data in it is always a string. Yes, yes. This is correct. When you read data from a file, it's read as strings. It's always a string, and here each line is going to be read as a string. It's important to remember, even if you have numbers in there. You will read a string that looks like a number, and then you would need to use the int function to turn it into a number before using it. But in our case, since we have tweets, we're okay with each tweet being a string. So we read the line. The first thing I like to do is use the strip method to get rid of all the extra white space at the beginning and at the end of the line. So I get rid of spaces, I get rid of new line characters. Sometimes if there are tabulation characters, I get rid of them as well, but only at the beginning and the end. Anything in the middle stays in there. So that's the strip method for you. Now, the next thing that I want to do is actually take my add tweet function. So I'm going to do add tweet. And remember that the two things I need to pass is the user tags dictionary and the tweet itself. So in our case, user tags is called just like that. And instead of tweet, we need to pass line, because line is actually the cleaned up tweet that we have here. Nate, you're asking, do you also feel a need to check that there is no empty line? Yes, thank you. Thank you for reminding me of that. In this specific case, it shouldn't be a problem. Why? Because when we send the line to our add tweet function, it will actually check here if there is a user. And the parse user function will return an empty string if there is no user in there. So if it takes in an empty line, it will return an empty string, and we will bypass all of this. So it's not necessary here to check whether it's an empty line or not, but generally speaking, it's always a good idea to check whether the line actually exists. And in this specific case, we would do it like this. And I mean, I don't mind actually adding this because I think it's always a good idea. So this condition means if there is actually anything in the line. The only thing, no, this is a bad place to do it. This is not the place we need to do it. We need to do it here, because we first need to strip it of white space, because there is always going to be a return character in there, a new line character, unless it's the last line. The last line does not have a return character, the new line character, but all the rest do. So first we remove the white space and only then check if there is anything left. And if there is anything left, we will call this function. And the function will change our dictionary. So note that I do not have to write this. I can, but remember, since this is a mutable data type, I do not have to do it, even despite the fact that I'm returning it here. But like, remember, the reason why I'm returning is for doc tests. I can comment this out and the function will work the same way. So in our case, I do not need to save the result of the function, the return value, into the dictionary, because the dictionary is already changed. It's already changed in the function. And I believe this is it for the second function, but let's do the doc test again. So doc test, test mod, name equals parse tweets. And let's see, it's useless because there are no doc tests here. So not much to do here. And basically, we have completed two functions for this task. Wouldn't line strip get rid of an empty line as well? No, it will not. I mean, what does it mean to get rid of an empty line? It will give you an empty string. So an empty line by itself is not empty. An empty line, if you were to read a line from a file that is empty, you would actually get something like this. So an empty line from a file is actually a string like this. And if I do strip on it, so if I do strip, it will turn into an empty string, but it's still a string. It's just empty. And that's where this line would check whether it's empty or not. Let me know if the
Okay, that doesn't really
answers your
make
question.
sense to me. Because when I think of an empty line, okay, it has no character in it. And so if you strip it of like the beginning and ending space, wouldn't it condense everything down and then it just get rid of that line?
But when you say get rid of the line, what do you mean? How do you envision
Well,
getting rid of the line?
Okay, I guess maybe it would be helpful if you can differentiate, okay, what does that if line command do? And so if you have an example, like line 1, you have 1, 2, 3. Line 2 is completely blank. And then line 3, you have like 4, 5, 6. Okay. If you type if line, what does it do to that second line where there are no characters?
It will this condition will be false. So it will not do this.
Okay, and so it just, okay, it doesn't strip it, it just like skips it.
It strips it here. Here's where the stripping is happening before I check it. So I first strip the line and then I check if it's empty after the stripping. So for instance, if here we had a line which looked like this for whatever reason,
Yeah.
this is not an empty line. This is a line that has a bunch of spaces and a return character. But using strip, it will strip it to this. It will become an empty line.
Okay, and then that empty line, if you run that empty line into if line, it would just skip that empty line.
Yes, because in this case, an empty line would evaluate to false.
Okay.
And this condition would never happen.
Yeah,
This-
okay.
Yeah.
And just to add on to that, Alex, I mean, the way I discovered this was in our CIP IDE, there's a bug so that when it's reading files, it actually inserts an empty line. And that really messed me up for a while because
Okay.
my code was trying to do something with an empty line, which is why I like the idea of always making sure there's no empty line, because
Sure.
otherwise your code will process it. In this case, it doesn't because of other things, but it can be a real puzzle.
Okay. So yeah, I can understand your pain from a very specific situation with CIP. Okay.
Can I ask you one other question? This
Sure.
is a little bit unrelated. If you look at that first line, it says with open file name R for write, R for read, right?
Yeah.
You could also like write or append to a file, okay? So my question is, basically what this function is doing is
When you say this function, which one do you mean?
the whole parse tweet function.
Okay.
Because the parse tweet function is calling the add tweet function, right? And then your add tweet function is like adding those user tags and lines into this dictionary user tags.
Yes.
Right? Okay. So let's see if I can explain it in such a way that it's understandable. So my question is, how is what the add tweet function doing different than like writing to a file? Because you are actually adding to a dictionary, basically, right? However, when you're opening this file, you're opening it as read, not as like write or append. So I guess my question is like, if you were to actually open it as like write or append, how would that be different than what you're doing now?
If you open a file as write or append, you cannot read anything from it. You can only write to it. So if you want to save something to a file, you use write or append. But in our case, we use the file as input, not as output. We do not
Okay.
change anything in the file itself.
Okay, okay. And so if you're writing or appending to a file, you're altering the file
Yes.
directly. But
Yes.
here, we're not altering the file, we're just extracting information from the file and then putting it into a dictionary. We're actually altering the dictionary, not the,
Yes, exactly.
thank you.
No problem. So the only thing I forgot to do is I actually forgot to return user tags here, because the reason for this is that we need to return this variable because it's been created inside this function. If we do not return it, it's just going to disappear. So this parse tweets, if we look further in the main function, we will see that it's actually saved into a variable when the function is called here. So it's important to return something like the result. And basically at the moment we already have a working program. It still doesn't do the flat count because this is an extension, but we can already try launching it. Let me. Oh, okay, that was the baby drawing. Nice drawing. Sorry, I had to delete it, but it was keeping me.
Alex, okay, in Python, is file a mutable type?
You mean the file descriptor?
Yeah.
I have no idea. My guess, no, because I think it's an integer. But then the question is, why would you actually want to change it? Because if you change it, it will disallow you to access that file. The system will not allow you to access that file anymore.
Because you're able to write and append to a file, right? And so if you were to I guess write or append to a file, doesn't that imply it's mutable?
No, it's not a data type.
So
But the difference is that the file variable, it's not the file itself. It's sort of your doorway to that file. It's like a tunnel which you have between your
It's a
Python
pointer.
program and the operating
Okay.
system.
Okay, it's a luggage tag, right?
Sure, as any variable is a luggage tag in CIP terms, yes.
Okay.
So it's not mutable in the sense that you can change the file, because you're just using this link to the file to actually change stuff on your hard drive or wherever the file is located. And then when you close the file, it means that you sort of sever this tunnel. You can't access that file anymore until you open it again. File is an object. Everything is an object. So, I mean, in Python, everything is an object. Yeah, there is a file object, but still, it's a data type in the sense that any object is a data type of a certain class. So we can actually right now try out our program. And here is where, Nate, your question becomes relevant. Remember the question about sys and like this line and what it does and what have you. So the way we're going to launch this program is not by pressing run, because if we press run here, we will not get the desired result, even if we go to current file, whatever, because the way this program works is explained here. You have to run this program from a terminal. So I would actually have to open my terminal. And if in PyCharm you press this terminal button, you actually get the terminal. And for some of you, this could be a problem, because I encountered this problem in Windows, because Windows by default opens PowerShell, Windows PowerShell. And Windows PowerShell does not work well with this symbol, with the add symbol, because it has some special meaning to the Windows PowerShell. And I actually had to change my terminal to a regular, stupid old Windows terminal in order not to have this issue with this specific program. So the options that we have here, the first one, the simplest one, is file name. What does file name do? It means that first and foremost, I need to write Python. If you're on a Mac, you would need to write. So this is the name of the actual executable which you're trying to run. So you're saying, using Python, please launch our program. Our program is called tweets.py. So I would go tweets.py. And then I would need to include the file name that I'm actually trying to read the tweets from. And in our case, it's small-tweets.txt. So we go small-tweets.txt. So this is the way you would actually run a Python program from the command line. And it's the same for Windows, it's the same for Mac, with the only difference that Mac requires it to be Python 3 and not just Python. And if I run the program now, you will see the results. So I get, the first user is Barack Obama, and he had one mention of the big block of cheese day, and he had 3 mentions of SOTU, which I'm not sure what it means, but State of the Union. Okay, that's my guess. So then we have Gonzalez Sara A, who talked about education, real estate, and VT, whatever VT is. And then we have 2 users who did not have any tweets. And this is actually strange, because if you look at the example in the assignment, you will see that there are like different, for whatever reason, there are different hashtags here. So I think there is a bit of a Stanford screw up here, that the instructions do not coincide with the real program. And also notice here that there is no Kanye West, and there is no dog raids, because they don't have a single hashtag. They're not even listed. So the functions, the provided functions that we got actually do not work as expected in the assignment. And this is not our fault. This is, the fault of whoever wrote the assignment and wrote the functions. They do not correspond to each other perfectly. But I mean, it works. It just works a bit differently from what the expectation is in the assignment. That does not mean that it's wrong. However, we could change the provided function to get rid of, for instance, of these. If we look at the main function itself, here is the part which is responsible for calling this file with only one parameter, only the file name. It's here. It sorts the keys in the dictionary, and then it prints the user, and it prints the count for each tag. What we could do, we could actually say, if, I think this would work, if user tags, which means if there is at least one tag in this dictionary, sorry, not like this, if user tags user, I think like this. And I believe if we launch it now, no, we still get it. We still have it. Boom, 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 boom. If user tags user, let me check what we actually have there. User tags user, what do we get there? Okay, this one, and then we have an empty one and an empty one. why is it then still printing these? Oh, because we print user here. Okay, my mistake. Maybe like this. Let's check. So now, as you can see in the terminal, now it's printing only those usernames that actually have at least one tag, and it ignores those that do not have any tags. So now this more or less corresponds to the output which is given to us in the assignment. Okay, Nate, yeah, I can understand your confusion because it confused me as well. But since we've been discussing this with Vicky for quite some time, unfortunately, the quality of the materials sort of drops the further you go into the course. It's frustrating, but it's what we have, unfortunately. When is it really necessary to use the main function? Well, Constance, the answer to that is it's never necessary. You can always do stuff without a main function. It's more of a convention, which comes from other programming languages which do require a main function. So Python sort of goes, okay, guys, if you're used to having a main function, we'll give you that opportunity. Usually, if you're writing a small script, which is, I don't know, 10, 20 lines long to do something simple, then you do not need a main function. You do not usually need any function at all. You just write your code without any functions and, just code, no functions. However, if you have a lot of functions, you usually want to sort of put them together in one main function, which sort of spreads all the goods around to the subfunctions. So that's usually when it's used, but like I said, it's mostly convention. This is not something that you are required to do. You're never required to do a main function, but it's a good thing to have. Abhinav, you're asking what is a pure function? I do not remember. I remember hearing that those words somewhere, but for the life of me, I do not remember right now what a pure function is. I'm sure Google will answer that for you, like in a snap of its fingers, or ChatGPT. I will look it up because now I'm also interested, like, what's a pure function? But I don't remember, sorry. So this is the first thing we were able to do. And now let's talk back to, going back to Nate's question, but how does this work? How does Python know what parameters were typed into the command line before the program was launched? Because right now there was something written and somehow Python understood that it needs to open the smalltweets.txt file, though it doesn't say this anywhere in the program itself. So the way it works is that you have the sys library. So somewhere on top, I suppose there is an import sys. Yeah, here it is. The sys library allows you to interact with the operating system. And one of the things you can do is when you launch a program, you can access this attribute, the RGV, which my guess is argument values, is short for argument values. And what this does, we can actually take a look at it. I can print sys RGV.
It's argument vector.
Argument vector. Okay, thanks. I did not know what the V stands for. Vector, good enough. So now if we launch this in the terminal once again, I constantly forget where the terminal is. There we go. So you will see that this argument vector returns a list of the parameters which were passed at command line. So the first one at index 0 is always the name of the file that was launched. And then all the remaining parameters are, you know, at index 1, index 2, index 3, etc., etc., etc. So in our case, when we say this, we mean a slice which starts with, you know, the first index and all the rest. So we do not need the name of the file, sort of, we don't care for the name of the file. So in our args variable, we have a list of all the parameters that were passed into the main function through the command line. So to give you another example, for instance, yeah, let's not delete this. Let's launch something differently. Let's launch it with the users. What do you call it? With the users option. So it's this one. It says if you write it like this, then it prints out just the usernames. Okay, let's take a look whether it actually does that or not. And as you can see, it does. It prints out users, and then you get the 4 users which are present in our dictionary and nothing else. How does this work? Why does it type something different when I change the command line prompt? Because here it checked if the length of the arguments was 1. And in our case, when we launched it with just the file name, we had only 1 argument, so its length was 1. But when we provide this option and we provide the file name, the length actually becomes 2. And the first option at index 0 is users. So if that's the case, then we know that at index 1, we have the tweets themselves. So we parse whatever is in the file with those tweets, and then we just print users. We go through the users and we print the users. So using these command line parameters, you can actually change the behavior of the program from the outside, and it will behave differently depending on what the parameters are, because here in the main function, you can specify what the program needs to do depending on what parameters it receives, what the arguments are. So with just the file name, you saw what it does. If you have users file name, it prints out the users. Here we have a different one. Let me go back to the terminal. We could say user singular and then write a specific user like Barack Obama. And now we will get tweets made by that specific user only. So you see we have user Barack Obama. Like these are the 2 tweets that we got. Why? Because we have this described here. If we have 3 arguments and the first one is user, then we know that the second one is the name of the user, the third one is the tweets. So once again, we parse the tweets using the function that we wrote. We print user like Barack Obama, and then we, as it says here, pull out tags for just that user and print them using the print counts function. So this is the third way we could use it. And here's the fourth one, and this one is the one that we can't use yet because we have not written this helper function. All the previous functions have already been either written by us or provided, but the fourth one, which is a flat count, we did not do that yet. So this is the last thing that we're going to do here. Here is flat counts. So what flat counts wants us to do is take our dictionary and sum up all the tag counts across all users, regardless. So we don't do it by user, we just sum up how many times like this tag was mentioned by everyone and this tag was mentioned by everyone, etc., etc. So in order to do this, let's create another dictionary which we'll call like flat, I don't know, flat tags, for instance. Initially, it's going to be an empty dictionary. And then we're going to go through all the users. So we'll go for user in user tags. And for each user, we are going to go through the tags for that user. So we'll go for tag in user tags user. So we're going through all of his tags. And what we're going to do is check whether we already have this tag here or not. So this is similar to what we did in the previous function. We're going to say if tag is already in flat tags, we are going to add to that, key. So we will do flat tags tag plus equals, and we will add the number of mentions that's there. So for instance, 1 mention or 2 mentions. So in order to do that, we would need to go user tags, user tag. So this is the way we're going to access like these numbers, the number of mentions for that specific user, and we're going to add them to the total. So here is the place we are putting the totals together. Otherwise, if such tag does not exist here, we would need to, we'll probably do it first here. We'll say, sorry. It's easier to do the other way around. If tag, no, it doesn't matter. Yeah, so if tag isn't there, we add, else if the tag is not there, we simply remove the plus here. So in this case, we simply add this number to this tag. So either this is the first time we're doing it, or we're already adding to this tag because it's been mentioned before. And after we do this, we can return the result. And this result will be a dictionary where tags are the keys, and the number of times this tag has been mentioned across all tweets of all users will be the value. Let's check if it's actually working, if I did this correctly. It does not give us any errors. So let's actually try running it from the terminal. So in our case, to do this, we need to use the following syntax. So I will go Python tweets.py. Then I would have to write the flat option, and then I would have to write like small tweets.txt. And in this case, as you can see, we only get the tweets themselves, not connected in any way to the users. So we have one of this, 3 of these in total, one of this, one of these, and one of these. And this would probably look more interesting if we had more tweets, but let's add something. Let's actually add some tweet of our own. I would say, for instance, I don't have a Twitter. I hate the thing. But let's say I had it, like Alexander Belyakov says something like Scotus, potus, and I will add something that already exists, like big block of cheese day. And for instance, I will write VT as well. And now, after I change the file, you will see that I added another number of big block of cheese day. So this has been mentioned twice, once by yours truly and once by Barack Obama. And I also here have a couple of new ones. So I have POTUS, I have SCOTUS, and here I have the second VT, whatever it means. I have no idea what VT stands for, but it works. So it collected the entirety of the mentions across all users. So Nate, please do let me know if this helped clear up what sys.argv does. And in general, if anyone has any questions at this point in time, this is the time to ask, because we're basically done with this assignment. So we're able to do all of these and all of these work. Okay, Nate, yeah, I see your answer. Yes, excellent. Any other questions? Because we're actually 2 hours into our meeting, and I thought this would go quicker, but since I need to explain everything, it's going slower than I'm used to, which is normal. But then my question becomes like, this is the only thing that we managed to work through. right now. It was probably the hardest one, the longest one. That's the reason why most of you asked for it to be discussed first. But I'm afraid we don't have the time to actually discuss anything else. Okay, a pure function has no side effects. Print is not a pure function. Okay, so yeah, effects in this specific case, a side effect is actually doing something besides its main effect. So in terms of print, since print outputs something to the screen, that is considered to be a side effect. So it's not a pure function. If a pure function just takes in parameters and returns something, it's a pure function. So Abhinav, thank you for clarifying. Richard, you're saying presumably can just ask for input in normal code. You mean instead of using the command line? Yes, sure. You could do that, and that would also work. But many scripts in many different programming languages work the way this has been done here. They actually work through command line parameters. You just input them and then you launch the script, and you don't have to type in anything inside the program, because sometimes it's just a lot easier to type something in the command line. I'll give you an example why. Because for instance, if I were to type Python tweets, I could do just this. So I do T and then I press tab, and the command line automatically put in the file name. And if I need to do the small tweets, I just do it like SM, and then it automatically puts it in. So it's quicker. It's a lot quicker to do through the command line. I would not be able to do the same with input, but you are correct. This is obviously doable through input as well. Any other questions, thoughts? Marriage proposals. I've heard that the last time TJ got a marriage proposal, and like, I'm breaking my back here, not a single marriage proposal. The guy comes in, does like one lecture, half of a lecture, he gets a marriage proposal. I'm like, what's going on? Yeah, you're laughing, Mika. Of course you're laughing. I'm not laughing. I am indignant. Someone else is laughing. Yeah, Vicky, I can recognize your laugh.
I think that the person who said that is looking for specific age range, let's just say. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you for the
She has some
clarification.
requirements, and I guess TJ just he meets
Okay.
the requirements, and that was it.
Dude, this is a very nice way of saying that I do not meet those requirements, but thank you for being very
Under 30
diplomatic.
years old, I believe. So,
Yeah, that's true. Vicky's true. I'm not even an eligible bachelor, so. But it's always nice. It's like in one of I don't remember. It's like, so what? Do you want me to like propose to you? It's like, no, but it's nice to be asked. So yeah, she even got a wedding dress. Did she get the wedding dress specifically to marry TJ? Because if yes, I mean, that's out of this world. This is like, like code in place, connecting people. Very nice.
I'm gonna be honest. I think she probably has proposed to a bunch of guys already and had that wedding dress ready.
Okay, just in case. Okay, very nice.
I have one quick question.
Sure.
So this is just a little bit outside the program. So how do you pull the information from the trick into a file?
One more time, how do I get the information?
How you pull the information from the tricks into a file?
Like, so your question is, how would I actually save this information into another file, for instance?
How do you pull the information out from the Twitter? From like all the tweets came from the tweet from the X account, right? So how do you pull a specific user tweet and put them into a file?
Well, the way you could actually put anything into a file is you use the same.
I mean, I don't mean like people actually go to some. I mean, this is about a particular user, like Obama, like whoever.
Yeah.
how, I mean, they could have many random, many of them. So how do you actually pull all of them out from you know, from media platform, and you pull your information out and put them into a file? I mean, unless you want to copy and paste. I mean, what
Oh,
is your automatic way?
you mean like this file? How would you create this file?
Yeah. How do you create them in the first place?
I did not. This
I know,
specific.
but what is a good way to, if you can do it?
I have no idea, but my guess is that Twitter has an API of its own, so you would probably be able to download this stuff in JSON format from
Okay,
Twitter
okay.
using its API.
I think, right. I think I know what you do. Okay,
This is
cool.
my guess.
No,
I do not
I
know
think
whether.
your guess is probably correct. Okay, I think I know. Yeah.
Okay,
I
because I
think
don't
you are
know.
right.
I don't
Yeah.
know whether Twitter has an open API or not. Maybe it doesn't, but it's worth checking. But this is something.
It doesn't.
Right,
There's
right.
also a library you can use.
Okay, there is a library that you can use. So yeah, you just need to Google this. I've never done it, so I don't have an answer.
Okay, no worry.
Okay, so I see some people would go for Cameron. Oh, if you were her, okay, thank you for the clarification, because, you know, like talking about eligible bachelors and bachelorettes. Why not dream big and go after Chris Peach? Well, Chris, I mean, Chris, I'd go for Chris. How do you
Who is
scrape?
Chris?
Chris?
Yeah.
He's like the head
The guy
honcho.
that
He's
teaches
like,
code in
you
place?
have like Maron and you have Chris.
Oh yeah.
Right.
Oh, Mary man, what you doing?
Okay.
Very well, Mary man. So
Well,
Yeah.
the only thing is, okay, I would just add, because Cameron and Chris actually graduated from Stanford. And so if you have kids, they would be considered Stanford legacies. I don't think TJ went to Stanford. And so, you know, if anyone marries TJ, the kids won't have like an advantage in applying to Stanford.
really.
Yes. I mean, not that it counts all that much, but you know, you might as well, right? Like, go for the ones that like actually graduated from Stanford.
To answer Richard, I see you also asked about scraping tweets, and it's probably, yeah, a scrapping app. So basically a scrapping app is an application that scraps the web. It's a thing that goes across the web looking for specific things and collects them. I have not worked with scrapping ads, but obviously it's something that can be done. Go for billionaires. Good idea. Good, yeah. But not married billionaires. So that's yeah. Only 70% Stanford grads marry other Stanford grads. Only? Oh, that's not only. I don't know. I don't know why I said only. That's not only. That's a lot. It's like, oh my God, that's something like inbred marriages. Ugh. So
I think the only school that really worth to attend at Stanford is a business school. It's where the former Prime Minister of United Kingdom met his wife.
quite possible. Quite possible. So we're up with our time for today. My question is, Vicky, I have no idea what's your do we have to finish now?
I have a meeting at 12:30, and so you could go until 12:30, but you know,
12:30 is like in 25 minutes, right?
yeah, I mean, what I
I
could
don't think.
do is, I could find another computer. I mean, okay, if you're on a roll, and like, please don't feel obligated to say yes, okay? You're not gonna get marriage proposals even if you go like another 2 hours. So if you wanna like stay on and discuss, I will keep the recording on, and then I can go find another computer to do my other meeting.
Well, I was just thinking maybe going through the grocery list for the simple reason that the grocery list does not have a solution, and you know, like recipes, not even touch it.
That's
And
very kind of you. I mean, you can like pull people, because, you know, I'm definitely happy to keep the Zoom on, because like, we had talked about like, on my computer, I can't have two simultaneous Zoom running.
okay,
But I could go find another computer and do my other meeting. And
let's
then
do a quick poll, guys. Give me a plus in the chat if you do want me to try to quickly go through grocery lists, or a minus if you're sort of okay with finishing now.
looks like it's an overwhelming yes.
Okay, well, I'm not sure overwhelming in the sense that people who are not answering are sort of going like meh, but I do see like a number of pluses, so I'm willing to go through this. Sure, yeah, no, Nicholas, I'm if I didn't want to do it, I would not have offered it. So let's close tweets for now.
Is Vicky forcing you?
No,
Sorry?
no,
Vicky,
Blink
absolutely
twice.
not.
Blink twice
Vicky's
if you need help.
blackmailing me. She knows something about me, so.
No, absolutely not. I mean, I don't want to say this, but I think, you know, he's trying to like best TJ.
Of course I
I
am.
mean, huh?
At least until one marriage proposal. Come on, just one. I'm not asking for a lot. One, we're sort of even with TJ until he gets another one, and then, you know, it's a race. Okay, so
Somebody
let's
take the
then
bullet for the team.
taking the bullet for the team. That's a kind way of putting it. So let's take a quick look at the thing that we had for grocery lists, dictionaries, whatever. So in this one, we have a file which contains this, and I already created this file in grocery list. So here's a copy of that file so that we can work with it. Just give me a sec. Forget marriage proposal. How about a CIP prisoner exchange? There we go. I can live with 3 cats in Armenia. That's true. 30, is that like 35 cats, Richard? I know my wife would be jealous of you. She would be just jealous. She'd want. I think that's her dream, because she wants to pick up every stray cat she finds on the street, and she goes like, "Oh, can we get this cat? Oh, can we get that cat?" I mean, if I didn't put my foot down, would be just the entire apartment would be cats. I'd probably have to sleep outside somewhere. Yeah, at least I get asked. I know what you mean.
I actually had 2 stray cats.
Yeah, so anyway, back to our grocery list. So the idea here is that we have this list of stuff we need to buy, and we have lines in this file which start with the name of the store, then we have a colon, then we have the name of the product we need to buy, we have a comma, and then we have the number of the quantity of the product that we need to buy. The interesting thing is that, for instance, we have repeating lines. So for instance, here we have Safeway X1, and here we have Safeway X2. And in the end, we need to have a grocery get a dictionary, which actually has Safeway X3. So we somehow need to add similar products and similar stores to one to another, so that it's easier for us, to buy stuff, to buy groceries. So the question is, how do we do this? How do we turn this into this? I think that's the entirety of the problem, which does not, sound too difficult. Okay, and in the end, we need to print it like this. So the end result, we actually have to also call it from command line with the name of the file, and we need to have a specific format in which we print this out.
That was already done.
Is there actually a starter file for this?
Yeah, I think so.
Oh, okay, I did not see it. I was actually planning to write all of this from scratch.
So all you have to do is, the dictionary, which is the same thing you already did in the previous one. Just instead of users and tweets, you have stores and items.
I don't mind doing it again. So basically, in our case, let's do the main function as well. Let's say, if name equals main, we will launch the main function. So half of the program is already written. We just need the main. And in our case, we will get the file name from outside. So in order to get it from the command line, remember we need to import sys. And then inside we will use sys argv, let's call it args, and we will make sure that we have only one in there. So we'll say if len args is 1, so there's only one parameter, the name of the file. What we would do, we would actually like read grocery list from file. So that's going to be our first function, as a parameter we will send in the args 0. So that's the file name that we're going to send into that function. So the first function we're going to write is going to be called this. I'm just going to copy paste file name, and something magical is going to happen here. So after that, we have the grocery list. What else do we have to do? We just have to print it. So we will just say print grocery list, and this is going to be our second function. And that's basically our program. So let's start with reading it from a file. In order to read it from a file, we first need to open the file. So it's going to be open file name. I'm going to skip the R. This specific file does not need the encoding because it's all in English, but it's just good practice to, to do this. So let me put the encoding in here as well. Alex, would you consider a marriage proposal from a guy? I mean, sure, if Bill wants to propose to me, I'm like good with it. I mean, a proposal is a proposal. So, right. Okay, so I open the file. I would need to create the grocery list as an empty dictionary. And then I would need to go line by line as usual for line and file. I will clean up the line like we did previously using strip. So there are no extra characters in there. And then I would actually need to break that line up into values. So here, like Nate proposed, I would do if line to make sure that I'm not trying to do this with an empty line. So if there is a line, let's take a look once again at the syntax. So in our case, it's going to be store, and the second one is going to be like products. I'll call it like this, and I will split these two using the colon. So in this case, I would, and it would probably be good to use the first colon, just the first one. So the second parameter here says just do it once. So then in store, I would get whatever is before the colon, like Safeway, Costco, whatever. And in products, I would get this string. But this is actually, I don't need that string like this. I would further split it into two parts as well. I would have product and I would have quantity. And I would get that from products split. And here I was split with a comma. also only once. And now inside product, I would have the name of the product. Inside quantity, I would have a string that has this number. So remember, we discussed this, you always read strings from a file. So in order to turn it into an integer, I would need to explicitly use the int function. So now I have three things. I have the store, I have the products, and I have the quantity of that, the product and the quantity of that product. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to check whether, I'm not even going to check, I'm going to do a separate function which will add the item to the grocery list. So it's going to be called add product to grocery list. That's a long name, but hey, and we will use first the grocery list itself, then the store, the product, and the quantity as parameters. So here are the four things we'll need to write for this subfunction. So let's go and just copy this to make it easier. So we'll need to do this function. And I think that would be it for the file opening function, because we go through all the lines in the file, we add whatever we need to add, and we're good to go. Just let me do it like this. So now we need to write the add product grocery list. There are three situations that we can encounter. Let me quickly look at the chat maybe. For the keeper, what's a keeper? The dipper, the jipper.
It's the
Okay.
Gipper.
The Gipper, hard G, the Gipper. I have no idea who the Gipper is.
You've never
I
heard
not?
of this story? I would think.
No, please, no story right now. Not now. Not now. I'll take a look at it later. I'll check out the link. There are three situations we can encounter in this specific case. First, the store does not exist in our grocery list, so we need to create this store and then add the product with a given quantity to that store. If the store already exists in the dictionary, we need to check whether that product exists for that store. If it doesn't exist, we add it with a given quantity. If it does exist, we add that quantity to the quantity that is already saved in the dictionary. So the first thing we need to check, if store in grocery list, if store not in grocery list, because if it's not there, what we need to do is do grocery list store equals an empty dictionary. Remember, we did the same when in our in the previous program we were saving. What were we saving? Not recipes. I already forgot what we were doing in the previous program. What did we have there? The tweets. We had the users and the tweets. So this is the same as creating an empty user. Here I'm creating an empty store. So after this, the thing I'm going to check is I'm going to say if product in grocery list for that store, and if it is, if this product already exists for this store, what I'm going to do is actually grocery list store product, I will add the quantity to it, quantity. Otherwise, if the product is not in that specific store, I will simply make it equal to that quantity. So I'm basically adding to 0. And I think this is it. So I create the store if it's not in there, and then I either add the quantity if the product is already in that store. Otherwise, I just, save that quantity. And for now, let's check whether this actually works by simply printing out the grocery list without any beautification. So let's run this, of course, through the terminal. So what I need to do now is go Python. The name of our program is grocery lists .py. And I only need to pass in the grocery list itself for the program to work. It says none. Why does it say none? I forgot to pass something somewhere. Grocery list.
I think you need to pass back the grocery list, right? Like, do you need to return the grocery list?
Where? Here? Here I do not need to do it because I change it in place, but here, hold on 1 second, grocery list. Here, this one is empty. Okay, no, I don't return it here. Of course, I need to return it here. This is the place where I forgot to return it. So let's do this again. Hit me, baby, one more time. Okay, there we go. We have Safeway with 3 eggs, so this is what we were supposed to get. Let's check the other ones. Safeway was also supposed to have 3 coconut milks, 1 flour. So we have 3 coconuts, milk, 1 flour. Costco, 12 croissants, 2 coffees. Well, that's like 6 croissants per coffee. Someone is hungry for croissants. We have 1 sugar cookies from Target. We have Trader Joe's with pineapple, 4 grapes, 1 kale, 1. It all works out. So we managed to create this dictionary. So now the only thing we actually need to do, I believe, is type it in a nice looking way. So let me copy this to have it as an example and check the chat quickly. Okay, do you not need to return groceries function? Yes, I do, obviously. And then discussion of gippers or gippers. Okay. So let's print this out nicely. Oh, please don't do this. Why do you keep doing this? For some reason, PyCharm formats this in a weird way, and I don't know how to make it stop doing this. Okay, so what we need to do, we need to go across all the stores. So we go for store and grocery list. And for each store, we need to go through the products. So we'll go for product in store. And for each of that, we'll just print using an F string. We'll say you need. So then here, the first thing we're gonna do is say store product. So this will give us the quantity. Then we will have the product itself, the name of the product, and we'll add the S in parentheses after it. And then we'll have from, and this is the store. And I think this is it, but let's check. Let's check it out. String indices must be integers, not. Why is it a string? Am I missing something for store? Okay, sure, of course, my mistake. Grocery list store. Should this, let's try this again. No, still wrong, still incorrect. So one more time, for store and grocery list, so I get these as strings. So now I go to this dictionary and product is also a string. So I go for this. Okay, of course, yeah. Grocery list store product. This will be the quantity. The product will be the product. The store will be the store. I think this should be enough. Okay, there we go. Now we have a beautiful way of printing out our shopping list. Let's check whether it corresponds with the ideal 3 eggs, 3 coconut milks, 1 flour, 12 croissants, 2 coffees, 1 sugar cookies, 4 pineapples, 1 grapes, 1 kales. So that's that for this one. As you can see, after a long discussion of the first one, this one seems quite simple and is done more quickly, and we actually did it from scratch. We didn't use a single pre-written function. I wrote everything from 0. So Svetlana, you're asking, can we write unit tests for this using a cert to check? We could do we could actually write doc tests for this, or we could use unit tests. The problem is that I do not remember the specific syntax for unit tests. I do remember like assert. So the answer to your question would be yes, we could if we remembered how to do it quickly. But we could do for instance, a docstring, because we do know how to write these. So for instance, let's try our hand at it. So if we say, for instance, add product to grocery list, and our grocery list would be something like, let it be, I don't know, Subway. And for Subway, we would have, let's say, eggs 1, and we would have something like kale 2. And then our store would also be Subway, and our product would also be, for instance, eggs. And we'd say we need a dozen of eggs. The result would have to be the resulting dictionary would have to be Subway eggs 13 kale 2. I sure hope I wrote this correctly, but there is only one way to find out. No, there's actually 2 ways to find out. I can run the doc test here. And oh wow, that's a long one. Line 2 of the docstring for add product. Alex blank. Okay, it needs a blank. I did not know that it needs a blank. I have not done this, obviously. Let's run again. Okay, got nothing because we're not returning anything. In order for a doc test to work, we need to actually return the results. So let's return grocery list, and 3rd time's the charm, my hope is. Okay, so it expects the results to be in single quotes, not in double quotes, because that's the way Python likes doing it, with single quotes instead of double quotes for whatever reason. But you have to respect that because it simply compares the 2 strings, and if the 2 strings are the same, it works. If not, it does not work. There we go. We have a doc test. We've written a doc test for our function, and it works, and we're happy. We could have done the same for read grocery list. No, we couldn't, because we'd have to read a file name. So yeah, that wouldn't work. But we wrote at least one test, so yay! You didn't install PyTest from pip. Quite possible, Leah, quite possible. I have not done that for a long time. I'm sure it's not difficult, but yeah, I need to figure it out. What are the relative pluses and minuses for doc tests versus unit tests? I wish I could tell you, Nate. I wish I could. This is a question that probably would be easier to answer for a professional tester. I do not use doc tests or unit tests that much in my work. So I know I did. I think I sent some article on this to Vicky. Now, if I remember correctly, it's not that hard to find on Google. There's actually an article.
You send me article on this. You send me articles about pointers versus references.
Okay, then maybe I read about it and I thought about sending it, but I didn't. But there is an article. If you actually put that into Google and say what's the difference between doc tests and unit tests, you would get an article which goes pretty deep into what the pluses and minuses are. Now we are our own CIP autograder. Yeah, almost. Much better one. I'm not sure it's much better, but I mean, yeah, we got there. So we are done for today. a reminder, we are meeting next week. We are going to discuss tuples and sorting. We will meet at 11 p.m. instead of 10 p.m. like today. So, 11 a.m. Pacific time. So an hour later than we did today. How do I test my work? I test my work actually by running it. So it's a bit of an old-fashioned way, but you just run your own code and you input different parameters, you input different values and see how it works. But to be clear, since I'm not a professional programmer, the work that I do is actually pretty simple. So I don't feel like it requires tests in the sense that it might require tests for a larger team working together, different people writing different functions, and then putting the stuff together and actually figuring out where the problem is once the problems, start piling up. And in my case, I'm usually a one-person team that works on something for teaching reasons. So yeah, I'm not the best person to talk about correctly testing code. I'm doing it the old-fashioned way. Not sure whether that's the question that you're hoping for, but that's what it is. All right, guys and gals, it was nice to see you. And I will see you next week then in a week. I think Vicky has already left us for the second call, but we managed to fit this into half an hour, so good stuff. All right, see you later, everyone. Bye-bye.